You're listening to The Head Trash Show with me, Alexia Leachman, author of Clear Your Head Trash. Head Trash is the home to the head trash clearance method, which you can use to get rid of the fears, stresses and anxieties in your life. Every week I'll be sharing insights, stories and interviews to inspire you to clear your head trash so that you can find calmness, confidence and clarity in your life and work. To find out more about clearing head trash and creating a headspace, head over to clearyourheadtrash.com. And now for today's show. Hello and welcome back to The Head Trash Show. My name is Alexia Leachman. Thank you so much for joining me today. Now on today's show I'm going to be talking about planning, which does it sound boring? I hope not. Because, well, don't we all need to do planning? Isn't that something that is kind of an essential part of being an adult today? Well, forever, no, surely. Well, I thought I loved planning. I thought I loved it. And I found that I wasn't maybe as wanting to do it as I imagined. Does that make sense? I didn't really say that properly, but you know what I mean? I really thought that I loved planning. And therefore, when you like planning, you kind of assume that you're going to plan and then you're going to follow through and do your plan. Because why spend all that time planning and then not do the plan? It just seems just a ridiculous way to go about things, doesn't it? Well, that's what I was doing. I would love the plans. I love doing plans, or at least I thought I did. And I noticed that more recently I was coming up with plans and then not following through on my plans as best as I could. I wasn't completely ignoring them, but I also wasn't really doing the plans. And that seems like a total, well, is it sabotage? Is it a waste of time? What is it exactly? Well, I wanted to understand a little bit more. So I decided to sort of look in the mirror and try and figure out what the hell was going on. And I want to share this with you because maybe this is something that you're struggling with too. And even if you're not struggling with it, there's something here for anybody that gets involved with planning in some capacity. So I would imagine that that's most of us, right? So let me just talk a little bit more about what's going on for me. So now just to put a bit of context around my own planning experiences, I've worked quite senior in corporate, working to, reporting into CEOs and board level. So I've written business plans, marketing plans. I've been hired by businesses to write their business plans. I'm used to complex planning, launching products and sourcing products from factories on the other side of the world, making sure they get shipped and then put into retail stores, relaunching product ranges with hundreds and hundreds of products in them. So when it comes to planning, I've done some pretty complex planning and I'm pretty good at it actually, especially in those contexts. I've achieved great things with my planning skills. So it's not that I'm rubbish at planning, it's just that I realised that there was an aspect to planning that wasn't really going brilliantly for me. And so I needed to kind of get to the bottom of this because like I said, it's not all aspects of it. There's just certain ways that it's showing up for me, and it can be quite telling when you start digging into this. So I think it'd be quite interesting for you to hear this because maybe there's bits of this going on for you too. Maybe you just don't know it yet. So listening to this could be just what you need. Yeah, so back to me and planning. We were old buds basically. I've been planning for years. I'm pretty good at it, and as far as I'm concerned, I could have a high-level planning badge. If I was at Cub Scouts, I'd have the planning badge, definitely. But I'm not. So what was going on for me? Now, as I mentioned, I really became aware of this with some of the plans that I've been making myself recently around things going on in my own business. And I wasn't sticking to them. I was coming up with plans and not sticking to my plans. So, I'd spend time coming up with the plans, refining the plans, and then ignoring the plans. Like, what on earth is that about? Plans are really good. I love plans. I think they're great. And I know how important they can be. I know that. So what was I playing at? But, when I hear that voice saying, what are you playing at, Lex? That's just Miss Sensible speaking, right? That's because there's another part of me. There's Little Miss Rebel that's got very different ideas. And she was winning on this occasion. And I needed to kind of understand why. So the questions that really were coming up for me is, what was my problem with planning and why was I not sticking to my own plans? Because I wanted to. It wasn't that there was lack of desire. There was an absolute desire there, but there was something undercurrent going on that was just sabotaging me. And so this is how self-sabotage can show up for you sometimes. Because, we can really want something and work towards it, and yet we don't realise, but we're also doing something that is getting in our way and stopping us at the same time. And so there was a conflict here, and it's very apparent now that I'm talking about it that there's a conflict, but sometimes it takes us a while to figure out that there's a conflict in play. But I managed to catch this one, and thank goodness I did, because then I was able to dive in deep and figure it out and resolve it. So yes, there was conflict in me around planning. So now I had that awareness that there was some conflict going on, I could do something about it. Without the awareness, we're blind. So it's really important that we do have this self-awareness about how we behave, what's going on, whether we're sabotaging or not. And to be honest with ourselves, because the only person that loses out here when we're not being honest with ourselves is us, right? So I did have a word with myself and said, Lex, come on, what's going on? These plans aren't kicking into action. What are you doing? So I really need to crack on with sorting this out. So the first thing I did, obviously, was use head trash clearance, because that's my tool and that's my go-to, and it works brilliantly. So this is what I did. Now, if you're new to the show and you have no idea what head trash clearance is, it's a potent clearance tool that can really get rid of head trash, conflicts, fears, anxieties, whatever you want to call that stuff. You can get rid of it really quickly. Now, obviously, a lot of stuff is connected and complex. It's not all very simplistic, and there's not just one thing to clear. It's often connected to other things, as you'll discover later on as I explain how the planning thing unraveled for me. But when you figure out what the things that are connected, you just clear those too. And it's just this tool that you use to clear each little crumb along the way. Before you know it, you get to where you want to go. So that's what head trash clearance is. If you want to find out more about it, you can go to headtrashclearance.com, where you can find out more about that. And also there's lots of things to help you to clear your head trash at clearyourheadtrash.com. Anyway, back to my planning fiasco. So I needed to get to the bottom of my planning head trash, right? Because that's clearly what was going on for me, is I had planning head trash. And so what I did is I basically just cleared planning. I just worked with planning the thing and worked through clearing my head trash on planning. I mean, that seems like an obvious place to start, right? I was planning and there was a problem with it, so I needed to get to the bottom of it. And as I was partway through my clearance of planning, I got the aha moment, I got the insight, and it made me laugh out loud, because I realised that I had a real problem with me. Well, I hate being told what to do. And planning was me telling myself what to do. And I had a real problem with that. Now, doesn't that sound crazy? That, my problem with being told what to do extended to me telling myself what to do, even though I wanted to do the thing that I'm trying to do. And this is why I laughed, because it just seemed so crazy that I was blocking myself because I didn't like myself telling myself what to do. I mean, doesn't this sound just nuts on so many levels? And yet that was going on for me. So the next thing that I had to clear after planning was being told what to do. Now, being told what to do is something that I'm quite happy to... Well, I had awareness on that already. I'm very clear that I don't like being told what to do. It's probably why I left the corporate world, because I don't like being bossed about. I want to be my own boss. So I knew that already, but what I didn't realise was how I didn't like me telling myself what to do. I mean, it just sounds so crazy that that's actually a thing, but it was for me. And so what needed to be my next clearance was me, being okay with me doing what I'm telling myself to do. Now, let's just dive into this a little bit. There are so many aspects to our head trash, and we can feel conflict on things. We can kind of think, yes, I like to do this, I want to do this, I'm okay with doing this. But there's a tiny part of you that isn't okay with it. There's a tiny part of you that hates this. And until you acknowledge that tiny part of you and you give it a voice, and then you kind of resolve that conflict that's there, it's going to be acting in the background, running little things in the background without you realising. And so even though the most part of you, so when it comes to me and planning, I was there with bells on for most of it, but there was this tiny part of me that didn't like plans that I was making because it represented me telling myself what to do. It was only when I addressed that, cleared the emotional baggage around it, which I did using head trash clearance, that I was then able to move forward and start delivering on my own plans. And that was my own source of sabotage when it came to planning. So when I often talk about having internal conflict around things, and you might be pulling yourself in two directions on something, and this is what's really causing you to feel stuck, or causing you to, maybe it acts as a self-sabotage. It gets in your way, it slows you down, it stops you from achieving the things that you want. This is what I mean by some of those conflicts. Some of those conflicts can be just this part of you like that doesn't agree, that doesn't like. There's a part of you that likes it, and there's a part of you that doesn't like it. And until you resolve those conflicts, then you're not going to move forward. So this is how conflict can really sabotage your efforts, and they can be a huge source of self-sabotage. You can like something, you can want more of it in your life, and at the same time there's a part of you that doesn't want it. And so until we're aware of that conflict, we're going to be running around in circles or hitting walls, or however you want to describe that and articulate that in your own mind. And so when it came for me in planning, I was, I could crack on with creating them, but I just wasn't following through as best as I could. And so, because on some level I was resisting those very same plans, right? That's what I was doing. And when I went through the clearance process, it enabled me to get the insight I needed as to why this was going on. But not only get the insight, but then kind of bash down that wall, bash down that thing that was blocking me, the resistance, if you will. So, so in my situation, I went on and did the clearance, which was being told what to do. And good to go. Now, I'm always one for sharing my head trash stories, my head trash clearance stories, because, well, why not? I'm not ashamed of my head trash. We've all got head trash. And if there's something that somebody else can benefit from hearing my own head trash clearance experiences, then brilliant. I'm not ashamed or embarrassed about what I'm going through, because we've all got it, right? We've all got stuff like this going on. And interestingly, when I did share my planning head trash clearance on Facebook, I had, loads of people jumping in, most of them laughing, to be fair. But I also had somebody coming in and she said this. She said, I love making plans. I'm a sado who actually can't function unless I'm telling myself what to do. I long to be a spontaneous rebel to my own routine and structure like you. However, I fear imploding if I do not do as I have planned. I'm so organised to the upteenth degree that I panic if I'm not following my plan, in case I forget to do something crucial and it come back to to bite me, sorry. Now, this is planning head trash, but it's very different planning head trash, right? That she's got a very deep need to do planning. And if she doesn't do planning, then there's a whole heap of stuff that she's worried is going to happen to her. So, our planning head trash can be, you can avoid planning, you can kind of steer clear of it, or you can kind of be doing it almost as a kind of need, this very strong emotional need. And both of those are and they're not very helpful energy. If you're coming to something with a very strong need, it's going to really make that a very difficult thing for you to do effectively, and for it to, effectively is the right word, because you're going to be bringing so much other emotional needy energy to it. A lot of anxiety. When you think about what this quote I've just shared with you, I have a fear. I fear imploding if I do not do as I have planned. There's a lot of fear wrapped up in this need to plan, and so you can imagine somebody approaching the planning task, worrying that they've got to do it. They've got to do it really well, because if I don't, I'm going to implode. I mean, that carries a lot of fear energy going on there. So that's going to affect the kind of plan that is done, the way that plans are executed, the energy in which the plan is executed. It's just not being done from the right space, from the right energy. And so whether or not you're really good at planning, or whether or not you're avoiding it altogether, unless you're kind of approaching it very neutrally without all this emotion, then there's probably clearance work that you can benefit from doing, because really you just want to be able to get to a place where you do a plan, it doesn't bring up anything. You're like, oh, right, we're organising a 2-week holiday, driving across the States or whatever. Right, yeah, plan this, get this, organise car, flights, boom, shabash, bosh, get it sorted. There's no stress around it. There's no anxiety. There's no, we've got to do it, because if we don't, then we're going to be stuck in this awful motel and it's going to be a disaster. And there isn't that kind of fear and anxiety behind it. You're just doing it because it's a sensible thing to do and you're doing it, as opposed to doing it and then ignoring your plan, which is what I was doing, or going hell for leather with it and then it having all of this icky energy as part of it. So wherever you are on the planning spectrum, unless you are approaching your planning in a nonchalant fashion, and it's, you do it, but there's no kind of emotional stuff around it, then the chances are you need to do some planning clearance, in my view. So if you are using, get hold of my book, Clear Your Head Trash. You've got the head trash clearance method. All the instructions are in there. Of course, if you join the Clearance Club, there's a whole planning section in the Clearance Club. The Clearance Club is my monthly membership where you've got a vault of head trash clearance resources, all the scripts and clearance tracks, organised by theme. Oh my goodness, I'm such a geek and I love having things organised by theme. So the Clearance Club is for you if you really want to take your head trash clearance seriously. It's got everything you need to just crack on with your clearance. So you just literally, if you can read, that's all you need to do. You just need to be able to read and log in on your desktop or your phone. And you are good to go in terms of clearing all sorts of head trash across a wide number of topics and themes in life. Weight loss, eating, planning, decision-making, control, parenting, all sorts of themes are in there waiting for you if you really want to take your head trash clearance seriously. So anyway, back to you and how you feel about planning. So based on what I've shared with you today about planning, how do you feel about planning? What comes up for you when you think about planning something? Whether it's something simple like planning an excursion at the weekend, or going to a restaurant, if you can do that where you are right now, or something a little bit more complex like a launch in your business, or what else, whatever things you could be doing in life. Think about what that brings up for you. And if you did want to do some clearance around planning, there might be some other things that might be worth clearing too. Some of the usual suspects that crop up a lot when I work with my clients around productivity and effectiveness are things like being prepared, feeling ready, knowing what to do. Some people, they feel they can't move forward unless they know what needs to be done. And sometimes you have to move forward without knowing. So it's the knowing that can kind of get in your way and get in the way of your plans. Maybe when you don't know what needs to be done, when you have no idea, when you feel a little bit clueless, this can kind of stop you from planning, because you're like, well, until I can write the detail in the plan, then there's no point in the plan. Well, no, you can still move forward if you trust in your ability to learn and to identify what you need to do as you go along. And this needing to know can sometimes get in people's way from doing the plan in the first place. So, whether it's things like being prepared, not feeling prepared, not being ready or feeling ready, these are sort of common themes that come up when we think about planning and our effectiveness and being organised and delivering through on things that we need to get done. I'm kind of leeching into productivity themes here, and there will be a podcast on productivity because that is a huge source of head trash. Well, head trash can get in the way of you being productive and effective in lots and lots of ways. So I will be talking about that in a separate episode. But planning is certainly part of that, and I wanted to share with you my own planning experiences when it came to my head trash, in case there was anything there that would be useful for you. So I hope that this has been a useful episode. If you want to find out more about what I've been talking about today, then head over to clearyourheadtrash.com and you will find out everything that can help you to clear your head trash and get to your happy place right there. Until next time, bye for now. Thanks for tuning in. You've just been listening to me, Alexia Leachman, here on The Head Trash Show. If you enjoyed the show or the book, Clear Your Head Trash, I'd really appreciate you leaving a review on iTunes or Amazon. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes for more insights, interviews and inspiration for clearing your head trash and reclaiming your headspace. Until next time, bye for now.